take life and just leave. I don't know.
In a world of choices,
you have the right to remain silent.
Some choose.
Do you understand that?
The greater of two evils.
Well, I took an innocent man's life, so to live with that every day is rough.
Choice. It's what separates those who hit.
Why me? Why now? Why here? Mostly a whole bunch of whys.
From those who run.
I wonder if he wonders. I wonder if he thinks about the changes in our family when he resumes the life with his family.
For 1 year, 9 Wants to Know brought you the story in a way seldom, if ever, seen.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
Tonight, we take a look at where we've been and where we're going.
9 News has been an extraordinary advocate voice for the people of Colorado.
And if we all have a choice, we'd ask you to consider one in particular.
As my kids often say, we understand the hit, it's the run we don't understand. That's the problem.
Call it an epidemic if you want, but that word implies a sickness, a disease beyond our control. Those who run control their actions. No one forces them to leave. Yet every day in Colorado, drivers make that choice. Before we started this project with iNews at Rocky Mountain PBS, we knew the hit and run problem was a problem and not much more. Now we know the extent. More than one hit and run injury a day. More than 1/4 of all accidents in Denver involve someone leaving the scene. We know which road is the most dangerous, and we know how often someone goes to prison. 1 year into our Just Stop campaign, we've inspired change, a change in law and a change in mindset. Tonight, after dozens of interviews, months of research, and countless individual stories, we present one choice to reconsider. Just stop.
Denver 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Denver 911, where's your emergency?
Denver 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Consider it a road paved.
I just seen a car roll over behind us.
Paved with something other
I'm sure
than
you guys are getting a bunch of calls.
good intentions.
We're going to be looking for a possible run vehicle. It's going to be a white truck.
He was headed to Afghanistan. He had been offered an assignment that he couldn't tell us about. So we didn't know exactly what he was going to maybe do in March.
Jesse Pringle survived one tour in Iraq and was weeks away from a tour in Afghanistan when he died in a hospital in Colorado.
His ear was torn off in the accident, and in the emergency room they reattached it, which meant a lot to me. So when I saw him, there weren't obvious signs of trauma.
Trauma. From the physical to the psychological, trauma creeps into families like Priscilla's, leaving them with little more than pictures, and in some cases,
They handed me a pair of socks
a few items
and an earring.
the hospital managed to save.
That's what you got.
That's what was left of a life.
These are the faces of those killed in Colorado since 2011. 9 Wants to Know tracked each one. We also pinpointed the locations of each and every hit-and-run injury during that same time span. At Denver Health, we met a teen named Isaiah McKenzie who was hit while on his way to school.
I'm just happy to see him breathing. I love my little brother.
What we found in the Denver metro area is, on average, one hit-and-run injury every day.
85% is my new 100.
Tristan Rogers' leg now contains 14 screws and a 10-inch metal rod, the result of a run-in with a car when she was riding her bike.
I felt an impact from behind. That's the last thing that I remember.
State Patrol recreated the impact, but never recreated the moment she came to, an hour later, the moment she used her mouth to help her crawl out of a ditch.
Got lots of grass and mud stuck in my braces. Like I said, a little embarrassing, but you do what you have to do.
When State Patrol found the driver responsible,
can you tell me what happened back in August?
Joseph Douglas III implied something irresponsible.
I kind of assumed that it was a deer that I probably hit. And just continued about my night.
Our data showed in Denver, 28% of all accidents involve a driver fleeing the scene. The national average is closer to 10%. As for that driver who thought he hit a deer.
So is it possible that it was a person on a bike and not a deer?
I mean, it's possible. Like I said, I never saw what it was.
He received probation. In Adams County, of those convicted of hit and run involving serious injury, less than half went to prison. In Denver, we found it happened 34% of the time, and in Arapahoe County, it happened only 7% of the time. When we told the head prosecutor there of our data, he said a change will come.
If you get involved in an accident, you will stay at the scene, and if you don't, you can count on the fact that your liberty is going to be taken away from you.
Every time we get together and everything, we always feel that he's always around us.
Yet no story summed up our story, quite like Charlie Herrera's.
Somewhere up there, my grandfather's watching us and is glad that his family is here.
At the age of 85,
Today is going to be tough.
Charlie was the oldest victim on our list.
Yeah, he was coming back from the grocery store, never made it home.
One day last spring, his family met outside his Denver home.
We've always been close, but I mean, this has probably actually brought us a little closer.
For one more family reunion.
We will never forget what happened. It's very hard.
Your Honor, we have 5 members of the Herrera family who do want to address the court.
A father of 4, grandfather of 9, great-grandfather of 23.
This has become an epidemic in our communities.
And a husband to a woman who chose
I miss him terribly.
Chose to let a family member speak for her.
In the beginning, it was hard for me to sleep. I'd often get up and cry. My children would sit with me and cry and comfort me.
Every Christmas, she sat next to Charlie. Last year, they left his seat open for the first time.
I am very, very sorry from the bottom of my heart.
This year, LaToya Nelson's family will have to do the same.
The court imposes a sentence of 10 years in the Department of Corrections.
10 years. The proverbial end of the road. A road paved with nothing more than an unwillingness to stop.
We will never forget what happened. It's hard. It's very hard. He just hit a bike rider.
One crime, 4 witnesses, 4 different versions of what happened. Sometimes, surveillance video sanitizes the scene just enough to make you believe that maybe that's not a woman. Maybe that's not her body being sent into the air, and maybe that's not a driver who's trying to flee the scene.
I thought I hit a tree. A tree was in front of me when I started to reverse.
Terrell Ferris never got too far, and police never did believe that story.
To sit there and tell us that you thought you hit a tree isn't very reasonable.
He eventually got 4 years.
Why a person would make a decision like that, I don't know.
Hit-and-run drivers in Colorado have killed 143 since 2008, 22 this year alone.
And he was dead set on joining the service. He hadn't decided which one, but he felt like that was a good course for his life right now.
Our numbers show 75% of the time police find the driver. That still means in dozens of cases they don't.
Well, that's our version of the cold case board.
At Denver Police Traffic Operations,
it's just to remind us that the clock is ticking on a lot of our cases.
Lieutenant Robert Rock keeps a list of Denver's unsolved cases just outside his door. When we first met, the statute of limitations on fatal hit and runs was 5 years.
And we have 5 years.
After that,
it's over.
It is over.
Is that frustrating?
Very much so. My biggest fear at night is when I go home at the end of the day is that our time limit's going to expire and we're never going to get our bite at the apple again.
If somebody called you tomorrow and said, I know who killed your uncle, could anything happen?
Nothing can happen at this time.
Vernon Hysaw's uncle died at this intersection 6 years ago.
They know that, you know what, I've just committed a crime and I'll never be prosecuted for it.
When we brought the story to the state capitol, legislators on the last day of the session acted unanimously.
I hope the message is that we are taking this very seriously.
From now on, instead of 5 years, police will have double that, 10 years to solve hit and runs that kill.
9 News has been an extraordinary advocate voice for the people of Colorado.
I'm just saying, I don't remember hitting no lady.
more time to solve crimes at a time.
I do not remember that. What did you swerve for then? I don't remember all that, you know what I mean?
A time when not everyone is eager to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
All right, it's 1:29 a.m. in the morning on January 31st. This interview is concluded.
Denver 911, what's the address of the emergency? The corner of Josephine and Colfax. Colfax and Josephine. A car just ran into a bunch of people on the sidewalk.
Of all of the people destined to hit and run,
Is anyone pinned?
very few can claim as fitting of a name
He hit a whole bus stop.
as Skipper, as in Mark Skipper.
The vehicle's missing a tire.
Shortly after the crash on Colfax, Skipper skipped out.
Sit down.
White t-shirt and jeans. You want me to go try to track him?
No, do not follow him. Just keep yourself safe.
In the end, he never got too far.
An hour and a half after the accident, he was laying on his girlfriend's bed sleeping.
A judge gave him 6 years. Prosecutors credited the work of witnesses, which got us thinking. What happens to us when we see something that happens without warning? Warning. Okay. We are recording. This is not real. We know that. You now know that.
We're going to start probably around like 10:15.
But they...
Who does everybody work for?
They do not.
We're supposed to be aware of our surroundings at all times.
Cab drivers Ron, John, Rita, and Bale thought we only wanted to talk traffic.
I'm always prepared of what's going on around me, what the car in front of me is doing, the people next to me.
We were much more interested in sociology, particularly when it's combined with simple physics. With their backs turned, how would force and mass react with? Once our producer rolls the bike and gets out of the way.
Oh no.
Oh! React with something as common as pressure. Pressure.
He just hit the bike.
What happened?
He just hit a bike rider. And he's trying to run away. He's running.
2 of our witnesses ran toward the victim,
He hit the bike rider and he ran that way.
while the other 2 ran toward the suspect.
Oftentimes what we find is everyone runs to the victim and no one worries about the vehicle that leaves.
Okay, don't move her, don't move her.
Not wanting this to go on forever,
Guys, it's a drill.
we let them in on the secret.
All right, guys.
Our secret and her secret.
So she's okay.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
And then we asked, what did you see?
Saw a gentleman run out, jump out of the car, so I decided to chase him.
No, I didn't see the driver at all.
Maybe 35, 40, I don't know.
Gray hoodie, and then it looks like khaki.
The car was white with a black door.
No, it was the car was too far from where we were standing to be able to get the license plate.
What you saw in a few seconds is all that we have to go on.
Lieutenant Robert Rock tells us witnesses frequently witness
It's hard to say.
different things.
One person might see the driver, one might see the car, one might see the victim.
Here's his advice in order of importance. License plate, that's huge. Vehicle description.
And whether that's a 4-door or it's an SUV, we need that.
Color.
Depending on the lighting, you may not always know what color it is.
Who's in the car? Any passengers? Long hair, short? And finally, where did the car go? Did it turn left, right?
You're trying to watch 10 million things at the same time. You're trying to watch the person on the street. You're trying to watch who's running away.
Just know something, anything might help. Because the next time this happens, chances are the driver won't be Denver Crime Stoppers member Larry Stevenson.
Yeah, good one, Larry.
Founder of the statewide Medina Alert.
I tried to chase
Oh, you was going to grip me, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, simple physics tells you an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Unfortunately, human nature also tells you driver at rest
And he's trying to run away. He's running.
doesn't always tend to stay at rest.
You just don't know who it's going to be. And it really don't matter because society wants you to do the right thing.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
A 19-year-old's final minute captured next to Denver's most dangerous road.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
was just the best friggin' guy, man.
Really friendly, outgoing, young adult.
He was just a bright, shining star from the very beginning.
Reid Huffman spent the last minute of his life unaware.
Yes, I'm really, really mad.
Unaware of the fact that the rest of his life would be measured in seconds.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Halfway across Federal, he leaned into a southbound lane. The first hit.
Nausea. Just a feeling of, sick to my stomach.
The driver of that car stopped, tried to help, and then jumped out of the way shortly before a northbound car ensured Reid's fate. The second hit.
He always had the best friggin' jokes. You could tell him anything.
Friends like Joshua Shepard knew Reid through the public service group AmeriCorps.
You can't help but get close to people, man.
AmeriCorps' campus sits on the western side of Federal Boulevard.
You never want to be near somewhere where someone dies. Yep.
Connie Griffith watched Reid die here and compared the scene in front of her apartment to a never-ending and dangerous game of chance.
They need some kind of traffic control so they can push a button and get across the street safe.
No other road in Denver, according to our data, has experienced more hit and runs than Federal Boulevard. 306 this year alone. Most were minor, but our count shows 32 injuries, making it the most dangerous road for hit and runs in the city. No need to tell that to the family of an 11-year-old who tried to cross Federal near Colfax in February.
My nephew got hit by a car and they left him there. And I just don't know why. You could just hurt somebody and leave them.
11-year-old Mikey Espinoza met friends that night, went to a nearby Denny's, and crossed in a spot without a crosswalk.
It's gonna hurt us forever.
Who does this? Who hits a kid and leaves the scene?
A monster.
The driver, a 21-year-old, hit 60 miles an hour while trying to race another car, right before his car hit Mikey. Months later, Oswaldo Lopez received 6 years in prison. In April,
So this has become a very dangerous area.
Denver police returned to the spot of the death of AmeriCorps member Reid Huffman.
We have a lot of kids that have to get across the street.
Our data found 60% of all people who died in hit and runs were pedestrians.
And it's a recipe for danger.
And half of those pedestrians were at least partially to blame for their own deaths.
It's a very important message.
Meaning, had the driver stopped, he or she might not have even received a traffic ticket. It's why, on this day,
$95 for crossing the street. You see that?
Denver police wrote at least a dozen jaywalking tickets.
We grown, man. We know how to cross the street.
Yet, hours after the police operation, we returned and saw it happening all over again. Which brought us back to what Joshua Shepard, Reid Huffman's friend, told us on our very first day on Federal.
If there had been a crosswalk here, he wouldn't have died.
No crosswalk, no way to cross within a half mile of the most dangerous road in the city, a road that sits next to a campus that educates hundreds. A CDOT spokesperson says more studies are needed, and any solution remains months away.
Nobody gives a Nobody cares.
2 months ago, another AmeriCorps member died in roughly this same spot. Not a hit and run, but a death nonetheless.
He came here to, as we like to say, to get things done.
Shortly after, Reid Huffman's family started a petition begging the state to speed things up.
You know, it doesn't always feel real. You think that you're just going to see them.
More than 2,200 have signed on so far.
Just a crosswalk with a stop sign. He wouldn't have died.
Taking the life of an innocent person, that hurts.
The thin line between incarceration and inspiration.
The first reaction was to stop. It wasn't to do anything else but to stop.
To flee or not to flee? Far too often, that is the question.
He was funny. He was mischievous. He was loud. He was boisterous.
Whoever hit Ray Cabri while Cabri was on his motorcycle fled shortly thereafter.
Who does that?
Ray's wife calls the driver a coward.
A heartless person. A heartless person.
Someone that doesn't care about anybody else in this world except themselves.
Police told Ray's family the driver almost certainly fled to Mexico.
You take a life and just leave. I don't know.
Our review of every death in Colorado since 2008 shows intoxication remains the #1 reason why people flee, followed by lack of valid license. And more than a few drivers told police they were simply too scared to stick around.
Why'd you run?
The anxiety. Yeah, everything happens so fast.
In a place where even the contrite are questionable, sincerity remains about as rare as a viable escape route through barbed wire.
Well, I took an innocent man's life, so.
Yet Michael Benton insists he's sorry.
I don't feel that I'll never be able to make up for what I did. And I have to live with that.
The day before Valentine's Day 2012, Benton, while on probation, hit a parked car. That parked car moved and crushed a plumber who was doing nothing more than getting supplies out of the back of his car.
Believe it, if I could take it all back, I would.
Benton, a husband and father of 3, ended up killing Mark Michelle, a husband and father of 3.
Taking the life of an innocent person. That hurts.
Eventually, he turned himself in, and eventually, a judge sent him here.
It hurts.
Not everyone still hurts, however.
After a man got hit trying to cross the interstate.
I was driving to the store, so what was on my mind was cat food.
Why it happened earlier this year, he cannot say.
Why me? Why now? Why here? Mostly a whole bunch of whys.
When Kenton Schoschberger hit a homeless man trying to cross I-25.
In this circumstance, there was nothing to react to. It was just boom.
He too faced those 2 options.
And there was the blood stain almost right in front of my face, and there was glass all over me.
Yet the man diagnosed with Asperger's not that long ago.
Logical to a fault at times.
Says logic told him not to flee.
You could have.
No.
But you killed somebody.
And it shocked the hell out of me.
In the end,
Boom, that fast, like that.
Mike's choice to leave.
What I did hurt a lot of people.
Led to a 16-year prison sentence.
You gotta own up for your actions, you got to.
While Kenton's choice not to led to nothing more.
Did you get a traffic ticket?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nothing at all. They gave me a ride home even.
Nothing more than a ride home in a police car.
The first reaction was to stop. It wasn't to do anything else but to stop.
One question, only 2 possible answers. Doesn't get any more difficult than that.
If it's accidental, why wouldn't you come forward and say, hey, look, I made a mistake, I did this.
By our count, Denver this year has already seen 446 hit-and-run injuries through mid-December. The state has also seen 22 deaths. Both represent a jump from last year. iNews and 9 Wants to Know now challenge you to continue this conversation online. So we hope you'll take a look at what we believe to be one of the largest databases of hit-and-runs in the country. Each and every hit-and-run in Denver this year can be found on our website. Just go to 9news.com and look for the Just Stop tab. And if you'd like to help, we'd urge you to use our hashtag, JustStopCO, the next time you hear of a hit and run. We all have a choice in the matter. Thanks for joining us. For 9 Wants to Know, I'm Chris Vanderveen. Stay safe out there.